children. If you wanna live forever, you gotta love each other. Say you gotta live on forever, yeah. And love one another. Boy, gotta fight the right fight in this time. Oh, boy. Living and loving and sharing and caring for your people. Oh, yeah. A man is made according to his work. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Say we gotta live on forever. Love each other. We gotta live on forever. And love one another. Oh, yeah. Living and loving and sharing and caring. Oh, yeah.
And a very good evening to you, and welcome to this evening's edition of Politics 101. I'm David Hines, and of course, tonight we are going to be dealing with political issues. Wherever you are, I want you to please share the link, let people know that Politics 101 is on, and we we are going to be doing as we normally do here on Monday nights. We are going to be talking about issues. So if you're joining us from Guyana, welcome. You're joining us from the Caribbean, welcome. North America, Europe. Good evening to everyone, all the loyal viewers. Hope you all had a restful weekend and that you've started out the week with a bang. We do politics, but we also have to live. We have to work, keep the roof over our heads, put food on the table, take care of the children, education, all of that stuff. And sometimes, we need to take a break from the active politics. But it's a new week, and we are back to the grind. So please spread the word, share the link. We're on, and we are going to be delving into some very important issues tonight. Okay, here we are. We're going to be delving into some very important issues because there have been some developments that we need to talk about. It's Guyana. The politics move very fast, very fast. And so tonight we are going to be getting into some of that stuff. So share the link. I know some of you in the United States are beginning to prepare for Thanksgiving, and some of you, like myself, have to travel. I am far away from where my siblings, my relatives, my family are. So I've got to do some travel to get there for Thanksgiving. And, even if you don't agree with the meaning of Thanksgiving and the American significance of it, it's a time for family to get together the pandemic really I would imagine last year curtailed much of that Thanksgiving thing. So we are trying to make up this year. Last year, I didn't get to see my relatives. In fact, it's been going on to 2 years, so I'm looking forward to visiting with them, and I know most of you are. So here we are tonight. The topic of the program tonight is that the PPP is governing like thugs. They're governing like thugs. It is the title of my column in Village Voice this weekend. And I am making the point that these people are governing like thugs. And of course, that has consequences. That has consequences for the larger politics. Look, there are some developments that we've got to pay attention to. One development is that more and more people are who enabled the PPP last year. Many of them helped to put the PPP into office. And some of them have now begun to come out against the PPP and what they're doing. The most recent, of course, is former ambassador. He was in charge of Go Invest during the PPP time in office. Jeff De Silva came out. Today's Stabrook News reports that former PPP government official Geoffrey De Silva has expressed concern that the current administration is proceeding on the same corrupt trajectory as its predecessor. De Silva, who has written a series of letters to the press in recent months on a wide range of topics, including good governance, corruption, race relations, and the oil economy, cited a number of troubling occurrences in a missive yesterday to Sunday Stabrook. Among those were that under the current PPP government, the beneficial owners of the Kanji and Kaitro oil blocks have not been revealed, and the review of the Piara oil project has not been published. He said that a new company whose owner is related to a very senior official has been given infrastructure contracts. De Silva, who served for a long period under the PPP as head of Go Invest, noted that some procurement bids were withdrawn and resubmitted a number of times. He did not cite a specific example, but this has occurred in the agriculture sector with sheep islands. De Silva also served as Minister of Trade. He said that contracts have been awarded to unqualified persons with political connections. The last Sunday Stabrook carried a report on the continuing questions surrounding the award of a school building contract, a company comprised of a DJ and football promoters. De Silva, who had a stint as Guyana's ambassador to Venezuela, also contended that some political appointees have been hired based mainly on party loyalty and not also on merit. That is, their integrity, ability, talent, effort, and achievements. Pointing out that it is challenging to direct and prove corruption, De Silva listed some red flags that will help to detect corruption. He says a purchase order or contract is awarded to a particular supplier or contractor who does not have the experience, the required facilities and resources. 2, some legal requirements and regulations are bypassed. 3, goods and services are purchased that are not necessary or appropriate for the institution to successfully function. 4, goods or services are not delivered or they are substandard. 5, there are no documents to support unusually high fees, commissions, and other expenses. 6, the supplier or contractor is urgently requesting advance cash payments. 7, a supplier or contractor wants payments to be made to a person or company other than his or her company. 8, there are close connection links through family members, relatives, friends, and associates between a particular official and the supplier or contractor who insists that other staff should not be present in meetings to discuss the contract. 9, some qualified supporters and contractors are not chosen because of their race, ethnicity, gender, age, or class. 10, expenditures for travel expenses and hospitality are not backed up with receipts and other support. He went on, the priority for Parliament's Public Accounts Committee should be to promote the passage of the existing draft legislation to reward whistleblowers and protect them from unjustified retaliation. The perception of hypocrisy on fighting corruption is a powerful instrument that could make or break a government. This is Jeffrey De Silva, who is alerting the rest of us. These red flags under the party that he was once a member or supporter, but he worked for them. And he is now drawing to our attention that corruption, especially as it relates to contracts, is rife under this government. He's drawing our attention to what's happening with the distribution of the oil blocks, the awarding of this oil block, the secrecy surrounding these oil transactions, these blocks. Who are the people? We don't know. Remember when the coalition did not make public how much it got from Exxon as startup money? Remember what happened? Oh, it's big hue and cry. And now this government is doing worse. We had Mr. Christopher Ram on last week. Mr. Ram said the government is not interested in good governance in the oil industry. He said the government is overplaying its mandate. He condemned the government for the pittance that is given to public servants. The Kaitro News is crusading against the government and its handling of the oil industry. Mr. Chris Ram talk about the inability to audit, to do that audit on the $9 billion. We have Schuman, the deputy speaker, coming out against the government on a whole host of issues. And what is the significance of these people coming out? Our first response is going to be, well, we don't want to hear from them because they have to put the government in power. They have to put the government in power. So we don't want to hear from them. I would advise against that. It is important for us to hear from them because they help to strengthen our case. We've been saying from day one that the PPP is a corrupt government, that it's a government that doesn't concern about any rule of law. We have been saying it now. People from within their camp, or some of these people may argue that they're not in their camp, but they supported them. They supported them coming to power. And now 15 months later, these people are coming out against them. Another one, Alan Fenty, who writes a Friday column in the Stabrook News. Every week, Alan Fenty for the last year has been bigging up this government, has been talking about how the election was rigged by the PNC and this government is the best thing since sliced bread. In his column this past Friday, he says, my simple question for myself and all citizens interested, is the 15-month government showing any gratitude? Let me read that. Alan Fenty, who helped use this column to help put this government in power, been defending them. Here is what he wrote on Friday. I quote him, the piece was coincidental with my thought processes assessing how the Ali Jagdeo victors are showing regard for international support garnered last year. My simple question for myself and all citizens interested is this: is the 15-month government showing any gratitude? Does it have to? Continue with Fenty. Put another way, my wonderment is grappling to process whether the PPP, as it goes about consolidating authority, then power, is conscious about how CARICOM and the wider geopolitical world is assessing its stewardship since the 2020 solidarity extended. Now, note, he says CARICOM and the geopolitical world gave the PPP solidarity last year. We know it was more than solidarity, but Mount Open Story jump out. And he's admitting that international forces helped the PPP to come to power. Now, we have been saying that. Now their own enablers are saying it. And they feel the PPP doesn't care. It got CARICOM support. It got the wider geopolitical world support. And now it's consolidating power. So, Fenty, De Silva, Truman, Chris Ram, and many others, after 15 months, they're realizing what we did last year might have been a mistake. No, they're not saying that. They're not saying it's a mistake, but they're saying the government is not governing properly. That is why I say that this government is governing like a set of thugs. Thugs don't care who helped them and who didn't help them. All they care about is to wreak havoc, and what the outcome is going to be, let it be. That's how thugs operate. Thugs don't reason. Thugs don't concern whether you're friend or family. The PPP is engaged in thuggishness, has been engaged from day one. It spent the first couple of months in power, chasing down Lowenfield and other people at GCOM, charging them, jailing them. It called out soldiers and sent them to West Bobis against people protesting. It covered up the murder of those boys. Is that let loose the SWAT team. It is engaging economic violence against public servants, other people who they perceive to support the opposition. When you give public servants a 7% increase, it is really a decrease. It's a minus zero. That is economic violence against public servants. When you give $250,000 to a set of workers who support you and give nothing to other workers who don't support you, that's economic violence and economic thuggishness. Only a thug will be conscious of the ethnic environment that we live in, will be conscious that people are charging them of racism, and yet in the face of those charges, you're going to give $250,000 to one group and give zero to the other group. That is economic thuggishness. Only a thug government would decide not to audit $9 billion and let money go down the drain like that, because they are front companies. You heard De Silva, he went through, he said these are the red flags. The PPP got front companies in the oil industry. That is a small place, and we know that. Then you're right, I forgot Chris Glenal, who turned this paper, used this paper to help to defend the PPP and bring them to power. Glenal is still my partner, but he parted company with me and Lincoln because we did not go along with the narrative that the PPP won the election. He stuck out his paper neck for the PPP. No, he's crusading against the PPP. Their own enablers. Forget about we. They can say we are anti-government. Their own enablers. The Stabrook News, which up to this day refuses to carry any critique of the 2020 election that is not in line with their view that the PPP won the election. They're running editorials now every week, criticizing the PPP for what it's doing. Look at the thuggishness that the PPP has engaged in for 15 months. And these entities, these persons, they enabled the PPP to come to power, and they were muzzled. They're accusing the opposition of saying the PPP was installed. It's not the opposition who said the PPP was installed. The word installed was used by the American State Department. And we know that the Americans helped enable the PPP to come to power. And it's they who said it was an installed government. Because they know something about politics. When you have an election that is was as contested as the 2020 election, where both major parties said we have evidence that the other one's thief. It's a contested election. And the Americans know that any government that arises from a contested election is an installed government. It's not an elected government. The Americans knew that. They know that. But the Americans' position is that we do what we have to do. We help a government to power that we feel is going to look after our interests better. But we know that's an installed government. But if Kaito News and Stabrook News and all the others would have us believe that this was a legally elected government. It was not. It's not. An elected government comes out of elections in which both sides agree that the government was fairly elected. All the anomalies, all the thing that came out of the recount, it's there, the evidence is there. GCOM has the evidence. Why do you think Nandalal, in his so-called electoral reforms, no reform about the voters list, no reform on people who live outside and can vote in Guyana's elections, no reform about multiple voting, no reform about people who are working on election day and how they vote. You got 20 people in a district who are working on election day, but you get 50 of them vote. Where the extra 30 come from? None of those things Nandalal dealt with. All the anomalies that were unearthed during the recount, none of those. What is the penalty, Nandalal? What is the penalty for somebody in charge of a polling station and there is no statutory document in the box? What is the penalty for that? Nandalal didn't put that in his electoral reform. The police said people who voted were not in the country. What is the penalty for that, Anil? No, Anil didn't deal with that. Anil not interested in that. Anil decided that the PNC people are accused of certain electoral crimes, and he wants to pass legislation to give life sentence for these crimes that he said the PNC people carry out? What about the crimes that your people are alleged to have carried out? What about the 47 boxes? What is the penalty to have boxes without statutory document? Those boxes weren't found in Buxton or Pleasance or Golden Grove or Anns Grove or Denhamstel or Belladrum or Oaktown. They were found in One Repose and other areas that are partial to you, Anil Nandalal. No, those are not crimes. So in an election in which both sides said we have evidence of fraud, how can you award that election to a government, to a party, sorry, one of the parties, and say it's free and fair? The Americans got it right. The Americans agree we gave the election to one of them, but the government was not elected. It was installed. The Americans are straight up. All the others said the government was elected. And their elected government, they're now saying is corrupt. Their elected government, they're now saying they're not engaged in good governance. No. We've been saying that before the elections were called. We were saying once you have a contested election and you award it to one side or the other, you are giving that side license to do whatever they want, because they are going to say, the Americans say, we are the right governors. The Chamber of Commerce said we are the right governors. Chris Ram said we are the right governors. Stabrook News say we are the right governors. Kaitor News say we are the right governors. The Commonwealth said we are the right governors. CARICOM say we are the right governors. The Canadians say we are the right governors. And since all of them say we are right, it means the other side is wrong and we have a wide mandate. Never mind we got 50% of the vote. We get 100% of the power brokers. The PPP then sees its mandate not from the 50% that they said they get. The mandate came from the fact that important voices, important regional organizations, important international organizations said they win. And if the Americans and Canadians and Europeans and CARICOM and Commonwealth and OAS say we win, then we get 100% mandate. And any government that perceives itself having such a wide mandate is going to govern like thugs. No regard for the law, no regard for the opposition, no regard even for the people who helped them to get into power. No regard for anybody. Insensitive, thugs. And so what they did, the international community, CARICOM, the Chamber of Commerce, the media. What they did last year is that they helped to install a sub-government, and then they enabled them for an entire year. And now, like Judas, some of them, they're pretending that all the things that the government is now doing, it's based on some bad governance. No, it's not. The logic of installing a government in an election that was so contested is what you get now. The hatred for people like me, Lincoln, Lewis, the hatred for us by the PPP and their enablers is that we were critical of the coalition. We were. We supported the coalition. My party was part of the coalition. But I'm not a political thug. Which means that if I see wrong, it doesn't matter whether it's a government that I support. If I see wrong, I will call it out. And I did that. And the coalition punished me. They punished Lincoln. But when it came to the election and we saw what was happening, we said, no, we are not going to go along with your narrative that the coalition rigged the election. In my case, I said, let me wait and see the evidence. At one point, I said, look, you all don't worry about this election. Just call this election off. I used the flowery language. I said, discard those boxes. What I meant was, look, you all forget about this election. Call it a draw. And you all form an interim government. Let it run for 3 years. I suggested that Granger should be the president and whoever the PPP should be the prime minister. They cussed me out for that, but I didn't care who was the president or the prime minister. All I was saying is that you have a joint government. And let the joint government repair the country. The PPP by itself can't repair the country. The PNC by itself can't repair the country. If they could have done it, they would have done it. One was in there for 28 years. The other was there for 3 years, for 23 years. The other one come back for 5 years. And they've not repaired the country. So try something new. And you all have an opportunity now. Because both of you all say the election thief. So forget about the election, call it a draw, or an inconclusive election. GCOM has the authority to do that. That is what Lowenfield recommended. He said after the recount, all the anomalies I see, I can't determine a winner. So Vincent said, I said, well, if there's no winner, call it a draw and put both of them, give them half and half, the government. And together, you all repair the country. You all repair the elections machinery, repair the police force, do it together. So there's no issue here of discrimination. You all determine how much together, determine how much public servants must get, repair industrial relations. That's what we asked for. To this day, I have not said the coalition won. I was a candidate for the coalition. Many coalition supporters believe the coalition win, right? That's them. I don't have a problem with people believing that their party win. But I don't know who win. The election was inconclusive. The recount order showed clearly that the PPP was engaged in shenanigans before election day. The recount order established that. The court decided not to use it, and they said let it go to a petition. The court was being disingenuous, because when the PPP said they see Mingo do something, Mingo mistabulate, he used spreadsheet. When they went to the court should have tell them, as they would normally would tell parties, come back to us with a petition. But no, the court entertained the PPP. And that is what caused the 5 months. It's not the coalition that caused the 5 months. If a party see rigging in our system, that party wait until after the election and use it as an evidence of petition. That's how we operate in Guyana and the English-speaking Caribbean. No, the PPP said they saw rigging, and they went to the court, and the court initially said, go back and correct what you're doing, what you see wrong. The court tells you, come, correct what you see wrong. Mingo changed what he was doing. The PPP and his henchmen then invade the commission office, and at that point they break the election up. They broke up the election. The question is why they break up an election that they were so certain that they had won and they had seen Ethan. They break up the election and then go to court, and the court entertain them. And then Granger allow them to suck him into the recount order. They allow him to, they suck him in. His own people tell him don't go down that road. Because there were 10 results from the 10 regions, which had to go to GCOM for validation. But Granger went along with the recount order. He should not have. But the recount order threw up the unexpected. The recount order showed the PPP rigged before election day. The court then, instead of using that recount results to arrive at a determination, they decided not to. Now, I'm an institution man. And so, one has to go along with what the court ruled, but I think the court acted badly. They did not read the political situation, or they ignored it. You see, the law doesn't exist in a vacuum. It doesn't. The law doesn't exist in a vacuum. The law is part of the wider society. And the court, being conscious of a disputed election, should have acted differently. I disagree with the court in that way. The appeal court made the fundamental point that so long as you had a recount and the recount had certain rules, then you are changing the meaning of a valid vote. A non-valid vote is usually a spoiled vote. But now the recount order was saying A non-valid vote is much more than a spoiled vote, because you're going into those boxes to figure out how the votes got into the boxes, what kind of votes they are in the boxes. And you went into the boxes and you're saying, in effect, that votes in a box with no statutory documents cannot be valid votes. Votes in a box by people who are not in the country on the day of voting is not a valid vote. And the appeal court said, valid votes, the recount order, changed the meaning of a valid vote. The CCJ disagreed. I'm saying they all were enablers of the PPP coming to power. The Americans were the only honest ones who said, we helped them to come to power, but they're not elected. They were installed. All the others said, oh, the court said they win. The court did not entertain all the evidence at its disposal. The court did not entertain the evidence of the recount order. Did not. It did not. The court ruled on forms, not essence. And so they installed a thug government. Thug government. And the PPP is governing now like thugs. And some of them, like my friend Chris Ram, like Mr. De Silva, like Dalal, like Schumann, at least they've decided to come clean and said this is a set of thugs that we have helped to put. Now they haven't walked back their narrative that the government was elected. They haven't walked that back. But they're saying this elected government is behaving like thugs.
build every morning. Now because your money done, you come with conniving morning. Then you had your pocket full. In a build every morning. Now because your money done, you hustle for tell me morning. Yes, morning, neighbor. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, neighbor, morning. Morning, I know what you conniving morning. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. Neighbor, neighbor, joker. That's all the money that me walk for. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. A 2 pound note and a guilder piece. This all the money that me walk for. I said money, neighbor. Money, neighbor, money. Money, neighbor, money. Money, I know what you conniving money. Oh, Joseph.
For me. Oh, Joseph, for me. Morning, neighbor, morning, early morning, morning, morning. It is the first day of December in the year 2021. Yes, welcome to another program of Box Story Morning Time. This is your host, KAMSTV. I'm broadcasting to you live from the studios of KAMSTV, located in Buxton. I trust you had a wonderful day yesterday. Those of you who went out to the picket line, congratulations, you've done well. We need to see larger numbers. Those of you who were able to get the bag yesterday and be good role models, congratulations, you've done well. I hope you had productive days and restful nights last night. Today happens to be the 1st of December. I'm not going to stay with you until 9 o'clock because I can't stay with you until 9 o'clock. We're going to have today's court, that is. Remember, I was arrested for that protest in August. And so today is a court date. And so I have to go to court for 9. It therefore means that I have to leave Buxton earlier than 9 because I have to travel to Georgetown. Usually in the morning the traffic is mad. And I don't want to be disrespectful to the court. And therefore I will have to leave you early. But let me tell you a few things that we can talk about today. I'm thinking we can do a program at about 1 o'clock today. If you agree with a 1 o'clock program today, indicate to me by WhatsApp and on the live chat. And let's do a 1 o'clock program today. Because I'm hoping that by 11, 12 o'clock we should be finished with court. I hope so. And so I can get back here for us to do a 1 o'clock program. Because there are a number of things which I think are boring enough for us to talk about. I want to talk about what's happening at Buxton Ball Ground. Nothing is resting on my conscience. I want to talk about it. I'm going to be mashing some toes. There are already people who are telling me, Kiraki, don't go there. You're going to make more enemies in the village. They're going to kill you. Well, if I have to stand up to highlight what's wrong in my village, and they believe that taking my life is the answer, then so let it be. Right? They say evil tries when good men do nothing. I don't hold myself up as a good man. I hold myself up as bold. I hold myself up as bold, as perhaps brave but not stupid. There are things which ought to be highlighted in this society. And out of fear, a lot of things have not been highlighted. And a lot of things are not being highlighted. And so if, just as other people put their personal interest ahead of the society, ahead of their families, ahead of communities, when people do that for filthy lucre, for financial gains, they put the society at risk. And for as many persons that are willing to sit back and say, well, you know, I am fearful to address this issue, we are going to remain as a society in risk. People do not understand what has been done to the Buxton Ball Ground. I want to address it today and take it step by step and hold the hands of those who believe that a wonderful thing has been done to the Buxton Ball Ground. And let's reason. It ain't called for violence. Nobody should be afraid to address an issue which is affecting or will affect the community and the residents. So I will be addressing that issue I see 2 persons have said 1 o'clock it is. So I have to get a majority. Otherwise, I'm not doing a 1 o'clock program. I want to ensure the audience is big when I do a 1 o'clock program or when I address this particular issue. So friend could tell friend. So y'all could start telling friend, Mr. Amsterdam say you're going to talk about Buxton Ball Ground and all that is wrong at Buxton Ball Ground today. The other thing I want to address is, I noticed in the news yesterday that the parents who assaulted that teacher at Winford Gardens have been set free by the court because the prosecutor failed to make his case or her case. The prosecutor failed to make the state's case. I want to address that because I am saying something is definitely wrong. Something is wrong with our magistracy. Something is wrong with our judiciary. Something is wrong with the legal system in this country. It takes forever to get certain people's cases tried and concluded in the courts of this country. Take, for example, the fat guy. It took 4 years, if not 5. To get the fat guy to answer to the 19 fraud charges. At the end of the day, the government was changed and the cases were thrown out, withdrawn by the hack. Something is wrong. We have to address that. And I'm going to give you my interpretations of what played out there. We have to talk about that. We have to talk about this little idiot, Batty Lion. Sometimes I'm tempted to use stronger terms. You know, in the community, they say little by dog and something else you don't play with because they ain't got manners. And ain't got nobody abuse it like that or thing. That is the Batty Lion. That is the Batty Lion. And I want to address that. I want us to note, in case you haven't seen Charles' series. It's another Charles, but this one got decency. And he's a role model. He has achievement his name. Series has about has a video there about 10 to 12 minutes long, addressing the Batty Lion. Right? So there are many things that I want us to talk about. I intended to talk about on this morning's program. But, of course, we have to give due respect to the courts, even if we don't believe that they're acting in a judicious manner. And so I'll be out there. I'm going to court for 9 o'clock, and therefore by 8 I want to leave here to go. Or by 7:45, to be honest. The road is madness sometimes. I don't always... The rush sometimes unsettles me. Right? So there are lots of things we will talk about. In the meantime, I want you to continue to listen to this video. It's Politics 101. I notice somebody's asking me to talk about the petition. Well, there isn't much to talk about the petition. I know the appeal of the one that has been thrown out by Roxanne George. The appeal of decision is to be given on the 21st of December, I think. So y'all gonna get a good Christmas. Somebody is going to get a Christmas gift. Whether it is the proposition or the opposition. Whether it is dead foul or the team for the opposition. Somebody will get a Christmas gift. And somebody will not be pleased with what they will be given for Christmas. That's somewhere, the ruling is on the 21st of December, this same month. Let's look forward to that ruling. And we will see really and truly where the court stands again. Right? So we'll talk about those things. Well, let me not stand between you and the message this morning. And the message, as it was being delivered, was Dr. David Hines on the PPP ruling like thugs. Listen up. At 7:45 or thereabout, I'll have to discontinue the show until we meet again. Some people say 1 o'clock. Let's see what happens at 1.
So where does that leave us? As I said, do not shun these people. They're helping our case. They're helping our case. This is what we've been saying. And now their own people are saying it. So we need to hear those people. We need to hear them. Let them say it loud and clear. Because they're helping to make our case. So that's the first thing you need to do. We need to do. Don't shun them. I will invite them on this program. Let them come here and let them critique the PPP on this program. They're helping our case. So that's the first attitude change I want to recommend this evening. Yes, cost them that they help to put the PPP in power, but recognize that this is 15 months later. And at least they're coming out. And if they're coming out, we must help them to come out more. Now, thugs are violent people. I said, look at the economic violence that has been unleashed on supporters of the opposition. Look at the economic violence. Don't say the government don't have money. The government borrowing left, right, and center. And they get $250,000 they can give to sugar workers. Rice farmers, they give them must be more than $250,000. Some of their own people said there was corruption in the money they give to the rice farmers and other agricultural workers, other farmers who were impacted by the flood. They give them more than $250,000. So you give rice farmers more than $250,000, you give sugar workers $250,000, and you give the other side nothing. That's economic violence. It's also economic violence that's operating within an ethnic context. It's ethnic economic violence. Most of the public servants are black people, teachers, nurses, policemen and women. People working in ministry. They're already the lowest paid. The average salary for a public servant is below the average salary for a cane cut. No, I'm not against cane cutters getting more money, getting better wages. But when you're giving them better wages and you're giving the other side starvation wages, something is wrong. And what is wrong is that you are engaging in ethnic violence against a major ethnic group in your country. You're not meeting with the public service unions. You're not meeting with the GTU, the GPSU. They've been calling on you to meet. You have not been meeting. But since a couple of sugar workers come out on the road, you're calling God, we'll meet with them and settle it next day. Oh man, oh, you got shame. You know say, oh God, if me do this, people like David Hines and them gon call me out on it. We can't be so barefaced, man. Let me give them a little 15%. David Hines ain't gonna quarrel about that. But 7% he gonna quarrel. They got shame. They don't care. They don't care. Because they're thugs. No. Let me deal with this question. Thugs govern by violence and they provoke violence. The PPP must know that they're dealing with human beings. They must know that bucket will go well one day, bottom go fall out. Bob Marley in the song I Shot the Sheriff, he said, I was going out of town one day and I saw Sheriff Brown and I know he will shoot me. So I shot first, I shot the sheriff. And if I'm guilty, I will pay. The PPP must know that there is a limit to what people can take. Brother Bob again say, ain't no rules now. No bullet can stop me now. They must know. And yet they are doing what they're doing, which means their intention is to provoke violence. You see, violence is not just the naked physical violence. It's the promotion of violence through your policies. You're frustrating people. Look how opposition supporters beating up on their leaders. Quite rightly. The PPP is provoking violence. They want the opposition side to get so frustrated that they will engage in violence. They want that. Because they will then say, we are the victims. They will then hold up East Indians to say, look what them black man do to you. And are you want to attack what we doing? Look what them black man, they're provoking violence. Let me make it very clear. I'm against violence. I've studied ethnically divided societies. And I've seen what ethnic violence does to communities, to countries. Look at the Palestinians and the Israelis. Never ending. Never ending. Look at the violence between Pakistan and India. Never ending. Look at the violence in the Sudan. Never ending. Look at the long violence between in Ireland there. When you study ethnic violence, it's one of the worst forms of violence in the world. One of the worst forms of political violence. It ain't got no rules. Societies can record our own country had our ethnic violence 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And we haven't recovered from that. And that wasn't a large-scale violence. It wasn't at the level of the Palestinians and Israelis. So I am against violence. And for those who think that I have something to say, I want to urge us that violence is not the way to go. Violence is not the way to go. But if you are the victim of violence, what do you do? I'm against violence. But if my supporters are the recipient of violence, economic violence, physical violence, police violence, must I allow my fear of violence, my opposition to violence, must I allow my opposition to violence to turn me into a coward in the face of violence? You know what? To give you a quotation. And the quotation goes like this. If I have to choose between violence and cowardice, I will choose violence. And you know who says so? Not Marx. Mahatma Gandhi. The Prince of Nonviolence said, if I have to choose between violence and cowardice, I will choose violence. I am not for violence as a solution. I'm opposed to it. I explained just now why. It consumes all of us. At the end of the day, people may win small victories. I'm from a village that the set of violence between 2002 and 2006, and the world, Guyana and the world, are yet to understand how that violence has destroyed my village, the impact. We are rebuilding our village. Those 4 years of violence has done untold destruction. The raping of women during those 4 years, unspeakable. And nobody, not the government, not the supporters of the gunmen, nobody has come back to that village and said, how can we help in post-war Buxton? Because it was a war on our soil. By external forces. The gunmen didn't originate in Buxton. And then the government sent in their phantom to deal with the gunmen, and our village became a graveyard. To this day, we have not fully recovered. The first time I'm speaking openly on that thing. And I, along with Kwayana and Andaye, were the only 3 Black leaders who, when Indians were being killed, they passed through Buxton, they beat them, some of them came. We were the only ones who couldn't condemn it. Does the PPP remember that? Oh no, Kwayana is the biggest racist. David Hines is more racist than Kwayana. We who defended the Indians when they were under attack. So what I study And what I see about ethnic violence, I do not wish that on my country. But, like the Mahatma, if I had to choose between cowardice and self-defense, because if you are responding to the violence of the state, you are doing so in self-defense. So, I think the time has come to defend ourselves. No violence. No violence. The objective of our self-defense must not be violence. It must be freedom. Let the violence come from those who they got violence on the brains. And they usually want to goad us, they provoke us. So when we respond in self-defense, they say, you see, it's violence. Bob Marley said, he who live to live, he who fight and run away lives to fight another day. What it means that you got to fight smart. You don't fight to get killed today. The hotter the struggle, the sweeter the victory. That's what Brother Bob said in the song Jamming. Or he's in one of the two. So, I think it's time for self-defense. We have to figure out forms of self-defense that are short of violence. That's where we are. I noticed Patrick Yard tell the workers they must go slow, they must think at first glance. I would say, Patrick, you're right, but Patrick, you are the leader. You must lead the workers. There is time for a general strike in the public service. The last time the public servants had to go on strike was 1999, and the PPP at that time was forced to set up a tribunal. Clive Thomas, my party leader, Dr. Armstrong, and the PPP had a man, I think it was Gobinganga or one of them. They set up that arbitration tribunal, and that tribunal made recommendations to the PPP for the public servants, which the PPP did not honor. To this day, it does not honor them. But the point is, this is not time for a trade union leader, in the face of the violence, the economic violence, to say to your people, to say to the members of your union, they must go slow. So you're telling them, you do what you want to do. No, you are the leader. And the public service union must go on strike. Withdraw your labor. Because if to them your labor means nothing, your labor means minus 7%, minus 10%, your labor means nothing. I'm in a Bob Marley mood to tonight. Didn't my people before me slave for this country? That's what Bob Marley asked. Did my people before me slave for this country? I build your cabin, and I plant the corn. Did my people before me slave for this country? You look in my face with scorn and eat up all my corn. And I must sit down because of my fear of violence enveloping our society. You are counting on that. You are banking on the fact that we are not a violent people. You know, the likes of black people are violent. If black people engage in violence, society, it was violence against the most violent institution in human history, slavery.